Good morning, Sumner.
Hey, good morning.
I have one thing. Can we update the map on the presentation? I'm on the map now.
Yes, that's what I was looking at that and I was like, wait a second. I was like, I don't have the latest map. I was hoping you had the
I
map.
do, I do. I just downloaded it actually. Hold on one second. And then I'm trying to see if I can replace this image real quick.
Are you emailing it to me?
I did.
Okay.
Hopefully it goes through. If not, you want me to see if I could put it in the chat, Sumner?
Or if you have the link, I know it's somewhere on the
I got
toolbox
you.
or something.
Hold on one second. I don't know if this will work, but that's where the JPEG is. And,
Oh, perfect.
okay, awesome. I was like, oh, and then Sumner, I had a question. I didn't know if you wanted to do like the overview and then I can do like the Q&A section and answer, like ask the questions. I wanted to see how you wanted to I guess run everything.
Um, Honestly, I'm happy to tag team it. So like, I can get us kicked off and then let you introduce yourself. And I can say briefly, alt fuels, yada yada, yay yay. And then if you want to add something else, like that you think might be a good point before we move on, and then nope, not that. And then we'll have the map. Also, I just realized you're not seeing my screen. I thought I was sharing for
I didn't
on that.
realize. Okay. I thought you were just going through it and I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, let me add the map real quick
Okay.
and then I'll actually do that with the visual so you can see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yay, you're on the map.
You have no idea. What's funny is so Dave Clevenger went to work truck and he went up to Trev. He's like, why are we on the map?
So why are we or why aren't we?
Why aren't we on the map? You know,
Yes,
because he was there for he was there on our redesignation meeting, you know what I
right.
mean? He's always been there every step of the way. So he's like, he
Yep,
was upset when he got to Indiana.
yep. That's fair. That's funny. Um,
I thought it was cute. I was like, thank you. I told him, thank you, Dave, for being an awesome stakeholder and pointing it out to them.
yes, yes. Well, at that point it had been like 2 weeks. They probably were still getting that updated. But still,
I,
but still.
right? He's probably thinking, you guys are the feds. You guys could do this right away. No.
Yep, yep. Looks like Paul's in the room, so let me
Oh, cool.
go through this real quick and then
Yeah,
we'll admit
we'll let
him.
him in. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see my screen, right?
Yep, I sure can.
Okay, so yeah, so here I would just say innovations in propane systems. Thanks so much for joining us. Blah blah blah. I'm Sumner with Clean Cities, Georgia, and then I'd pause and let you say say who you are.
Okay.
And then I could say that, you know, part of a national network would focus on all alternative fuels. Clean Cities Georgia was the first, founded in 1993, but there's all sorts of coalitions nationwide. And then see if you want to say anything about the fact that we do work with all alt fuels.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. That we focus on all the fuels, not just one in particular.
Yeah, if there's anything that you want to add, essentially just jump in, but don't feel like
Okay.
you have to do it. More so as I don't feel the need to be the only person that speaks. So just want to make sure you feel like your voice is in this as well.
You're so cute. I love it, Sumner. Well, what I was thinking too is if you wanted to, you know what I mean, like you introduce yourself, then I'll go and then you can go into who we are. And then if you want, you can go to the next line and I'll be like, and I could jump in at that point, and say like,
Okay,
we have nearly 100 coalitions, across the country. Here's a
perfect.
map of all our designated clean cities coalitions, and if you're, then we can move,
Notice me in Southeast Florida.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, and I was going to say a little difference between Florida and Georgia is that we have multiple coalitions where,
Mhm.
you guys have a state run, and then we can go into, what I was thinking is, did you want to do the next slide, and like say the speakers, on the agenda today we have, blah, 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 you know what I mean? And do that.
Sure. Yeah. So,
Okay.
so I would do this briefly. You would cover this, and then I would do the speakers.
Yeah, if you want, or if you want, I can say, and today on the agenda, we have Steve Whaley from Propane Education and Research Council, you know what I mean? And then I was just gonna say, and then I'll pass things over to Steve, you know what I mean? And then he can actually do like, if he wants to do his own introduction, all I'll do is say the name and where they're from.
Mhm.
How do you say Mauricio's last name? Morafialos?
Yeah, I thought so. It was more.
Okay. All right, that's what I wanted to make sure because I was like, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes people's
Yep.
names can be a little, funky, so I don't like to get anyone's name wrong.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Oh, hold on? Does Greg have two G's in his name? Let me just double check something real quick.
Yeah, you're like me, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I honestly don't remember if he did.
I already got his name once before. I don't want to get it wrong again.
See, girl, I know the feeling. Like, a lot of them have been
It's
Sam consistently always spells it my name Alicia, and I'm like, I'm tired of
Oh,
correcting it.
yeah.
At this point,
That's
I'm
fair.
just tired. Like,
That's fair. All right. Well, looks like we've got everyone starting to come in. So
perfect.
so do we want to just do that? I'll open up, say who we
Yeah,
are, let you do the map and introduce speakers.
yeah. I'm gonna speak fast, Sumner. So
No, yeah,
so
no,
you're
we still got
okay.
time. And then
Okay,
I'll run the two polls that we have set up.
perfect, awesome. You're the best. Thank you. Because yeah, like I said, I was like, I haven't really done the polls yet, so I don't know
Yeah,
how
yeah,
they
no, that's
work,
right.
but
I forgot. So
okay,
so instead of turning it over to Steve, just say, and Sumner will has a couple of questions for everyone, and then I'll run the polls and then turn it over to Steve.
okay, perfect. That sounds good.
Okay, great. All right, let me let them in because they've been
Waiting a few minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all doing today so far?
Peaches and cream.
Excellent.
I was gonna say the weather must be nice.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, took me a minute.
That's all right. Morning, Greg.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a picture.
Yep, I just remember that.
Yeah,
Well, you got no video today?
I got no video, man. The girls won't let me have it.
You, Greg.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I want to know. What did
yeah.
you do?
But I've got a picture. I was gonna see if I could share a picture with you guys, but I don't know if I can.
Sometimes when you log in on Zoom, if you have it set, then it'll at least show like a photo instead of just your name. But I don't know if you have the time or interest in setting that up right now. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
Now, I will be able to share my screen though, right? As far as
Yes, so y'all should be able to share your screens.
Can I try that out real quick?
Please do. Please do. I just made sure multiple folks can share.
Okay.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning, everybody.
Nice background, Paul.
Good
Mhm.
morning.
Yeah, Paul's always got that background going. I just, I hate it.
Reminds you they're having great weather.
All right.
All right, looks
You
good.
can-
Is that right? Did I spell things right? Innovation and propane, reducing it. Okay.
I think so.
So, and
Hope so,
my
because that's
slide,
how I
looks
spelled it
good.
too.
and I can advance slides. Okay. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
All right. I'm done. Stop share.
Good. Thank you. Did anyone else want to try testing out sharing their slides? You feel good about it?
Sure.
So just so y'all are aware, we are gonna, like I said, do a few quick introductory remarks. We're also gonna do a couple polls with everyone. Just to see, one, if they've used alt fuels before, and then two, what type of organization they're from. So that'll help inform us a little bit as well, who's in the audience.
How's that?
It looks small for some reason. Is that just me?
It looks like a picture, like, how do you call
Yeah.
it? Like when you have a widescreen?
Yeah, it's
And
not taking up the whole screen. It's like a tiny
All
bit.
right. Let's see, because that monitor that the presentation on is,
Is it a TV?
no, it's but it's vertical.
Okay.
So
Oh, that might have been why.
yeah. So let me see. Put that on.
Is Mauricio going to join us this morning?
That was my assumption. I think he confirmed the new date, so yes, he should be here soon.
Okay. I like picking on Mauricio. He's from Ecuador. I don't know if you knew that or not. And my wife is from Guatemala, so I know how
That's awesome.
they have this floating start time. I see you're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm
I'm
talking.
Puerto Rican, so and
Thank you.
yes,
Thank
so I
you.
definitely
Yes.
know.
Hmm.
I like picking on Mauricio a lot. I don't pick on my wife because
You're like then won't get out of the
No,
doghouse at that one.
no.
Right.
I live on that street.
Oh, that's so awesome. My sister-in-law, her brother is actually half he's from Nicaragua. He actually is living there now. Yeah, so
Mhm.
he decided, yeah, to kind of go back, and him and his wife love it. They actually just recently had a baby. Yeah, he's like I guess he misses the States, but just for the family that's here. But he was like, honestly, he lives like in a nice place and kind of like in the forest area, him and his wife.
Mhm.
It's a small town, so yeah, he said he loves it out there. So
You show up when you show up, and you come. It's just okay.
that island living, huh?
Yeah, pretty much island, but not on an island. Yeah.
Right? I was
State,
thinking just the mindset, yes.
state of mind, right there.
All right.
I'm gonna call him.
Did anyone else want to test out their slides?
Get Powell on there because I'm a little worried about him. If he can't get a picture up there, I'm wondering if he's going to be able to get his slides up there. Yes, you can take yourself off mute, Paul.
What are you
Greg.
talking about? What are you trying to start?
Just hit the share button and let me see what screens you're going to put up there.
Just got one picture. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly how to operate this.
Go down where it says forward. Open them up.
Share screen.
Yeah,
Then what do? Just put that.
just click on share. It'll probably bring both of them over there. Screen one. Share.
All right, did that work?
Mm-hmm. But right
did?
now we're looking at a Word document with your notes.
Y'all see the picture?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Steve, you're on mute.
Okay, so when I get to that point, I can do that and share the screen, and then people could see what I'm talking about. But you see over there to the right, from an electrical standpoint, this is what can happen, in pulling the wire and not being, not looking at certain things, not doing it before. We went through two compressor motors with all this. Took us down for about 3 months.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow, yeah.
Now, who's your electrician there, Mr. Powell?
This was a local company that had never done it before. They did a really good job in the sense of,
I can see that.
well, but no, seriously, in the sense of like documenting everything, taking pictures and stuff like that. This was, if you see it's coming out of the ground and it's making a 90-degree turn, and they just, when they did that, man, it just didn't hit right, and they didn't catch it. Boom. Cost us a lot of time. That's the reason in my comments over there is when I'm talking about make sure you get somebody who knows how to do it, has done it before. It's really important.
Yeah. Okay.
You have anything good to say, Craig?
Yeah, I got good things to say, but we want to talk about the challenges that you're going to have
Okay.
when when you're going through this, and, lessons learned, historical data from other people can be beneficial to somebody not making those same mistakes and being down for 3 months.
Yeah, you're as bad as Paul showing a burnt down shuttle bus. Good.
Listen, you gotta give them the bad with the good. That looked good, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, I was just gonna say it looked good the last time, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't reach Mauricio, so I texted him.
Thanks, Steve.
He says he's trying to get on, giving me an error code, resetting now.
Okay. And the link that I provided worked for all of y'all, right? You're able to hop on, no issues?
Yeah.
Steve, you talked to Randy or Tom lately?
I spoke with Randy the other day. I'm going to Arizona for the Arizona State or Arizona Public Transit Association meeting in a couple of days. So I had to get with Randy on a few things there. He'll be out there, and Tom will be there too. No, Tom won't be there. Ed will be there. Yeah, it's Arizona. I forget. I got to remember all their states.
Hi guys.
Good morning.
My apologies. My computer was not cooperating with me this morning.
That's all right.
We were talking about Latino time. That's what we were talking about.
There you go. Give it to the tech guy to have technical problems. Oh, I hate it.
Do you want to try sharing your slides real quick just to check?
1 second. Let me see. Pull that up. I apologize, guys. It's let's see. I got it here. Do I have access to share my screen?
You should.
Okay.
In the bottom right, that red button says green button says share screen, right down to the bottom middle.
Sorry, I am.
Sometimes you have to drag your mouse over it to get it to light up.
Yeah, I'm all Microsoft Teams guy, so this is
Okay. Yeah.
I always have problems with Google. second. All right, here you go. Send that to you. I don't know where, let me see, it's not pulling up. Can y'all start without me? Let me call my IT guy. For whatever reason, I can't pull it up.
But you see the share screen button down there, right?
Yeah. No. It's on our network. The problem is,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we still got a few minutes until we get started here anyways. So just let us know.
all right, give me 1 second. Okay.
Mhm.
Mute myself.
Does Frank have the day off?
You can talk with them in case they ask you a question.
No, he is doing his other business right now. He's got another side business doing lobbying. So Georgia's legislative session ends this week. And he'll have a little bit more time back.
Is it as exciting as Florida right now?
I don't know about that.
You think that's exciting? Hmm.
I was just testing something on my screen as well for the polls.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Did you
I got it. My apologies, guys.
okay? Did you want to try a test share real quick or
Yeah, let's
before we
try
let
it.
everyone in?
And it's gone blank.
You should be able to download the file from Teams as well.
Yeah, let me try that. Let me see if that, maybe that's what the issue is.
All right, well, while you do that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We can start letting folks in.
Okay.
Just double checking, if I have the chat box over my shared screen, do you guys see that?
No, right now, all we see is your presentation, the
Okay,
actual
great.
screen.
Just wanted to be sure. All right. Participants, here we go. All right, letting everyone in. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to give folks just one more minute to get in, and then we'll get started this morning. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this early Tuesday morning for Innovations in Propane Systems. We've got a jam-packed lineup here for you. I'm Sumner Pomeroy with Clean Cities, Georgia, and my partner in this is Alicia Lopez. Alicia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Alicia Lopez, and I'm the director for the Southeast Florida Clean Cities Coalition. Go right ahead, Sumner.
Thank you. So part of the Clean Cities Network's mission is to advance all alternative fuels, infrastructure, and support throughout the state. We work in our designated areas, myself in Georgia, Alicia in South Florida, to ensure that folks are having access to information they need to adopt these fuels.
And then just to give you a little background, we do have a national network of Clean Cities coalitions. We have nearly 100 coalitions across the United States. And as Sumner mentioned, her coalition covers the entire state of Florida, whereas our coalition is a little bit different within our states. We have 4 coalitions within Florida that cover the most populated areas within our state, which we're looking to hopefully expand within the Panhandle. And then our agenda today, we have Steve Whaley from Propane Education and Research Council. Then we'll go ahead and get into Greg Powell at Cherokee County up in Georgia. Then we'll have Paul Strobis from Broward County, Florida, discussing his paratransit fleet. And then we're going to go ahead and finish it off with Mauricio Morafilalos with Propane Solutions. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Steve.
But before we have Steve chat, we do have a couple of polls that we'd like to do with y'all this morning. Make sure you're awake. So first up, please tell us, this should be launching any second now. Please tell us if you've used any alternative fuels or vehicles in your fleet or business before. This can be any of the vehicle options: propane, EVs, natural gas, biofuels, hydrogen if you're really fancy and ahead of the game. Got some yeses as I see that they're coming in. All right, so far 85% yes, 15% no. We got a few more folks that are still joining us this morning. So if you're just joining, please go ahead and participate in the poll. Hopefully you see it. Give folks about 5 more seconds. All right, great. So we've got about 87% yes, folks have used alternative fuel vehicles before. Now, raise your hand or give us a thumbs up if you've used propane before. Anyone? Raise hands, thumbs up.
Now, was that a virtual hands up, or do we visual hands up? We have lots of options here, Sumner.
That's true. That's true. I will accept both. But you do have a hand raised option on Zoom as well if you don't want to come on camera. Sounds like we got a few thumbs up and raised hands. Thanks, folks. All right, and then the other poll for you this morning. Oh, sorry about that. The next poll is, what organization are you with? should be launching now. This just helps get us have an idea of who's in the room. Seeing some responses come in, a good bit of some local municipalities, some businesses and nonprofits. Give folks about 10 more seconds to respond here. All right. It looks like we have about 11% federal and state government, 39% local municipalities, 17% corporate or business, few small businesses, as well as some nonprofits. So thanks everyone for joining this morning. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Steve to get us started.
Well, thanks, Sonora. And you know what? Those polls are pretty helpful with setting the stage. You know, at least for those of us who are presenting, you know, have a little bit better idea of who's in the audience, and I appreciate that. And thanks for letting me come on. I just want to make sure that my screen is sharing with the title slide there. I got thumbs up there. Terrific. Appreciate that. So a lot of you have already, 87% have tried an alternative energy. That's great. I don't know what percentage it was propane. So my role in this is going to be the 50,000 foot kind of skim over real fast. And then we've got some folks that are diving deep into their actual use of it. But just to kind of set the stage for what this propane autogas, when we use it for transportation, is about, that's what I'm going to hit. And I've been accused of going pretty fast. So anything that you want to ask later on in the Q&A, just take note of or write it down in the Q&A portion of the Zoom call so you don't forget. But I am going to go pretty quick with some slides, and just to make sure everybody has a little bit of a hook somewhere to remind about the questions. We're in a lot of different vehicles. Since we have two transits on the panel here, I thought I'd show some favoritism towards those. We're in San Diego, we're in Acadia National Forest, we're in Baltimore's airport parking, we're in trolleys. So I'm kind of highlighting all the transits here, but we're in all kinds of vehicles, from light duty to up to class 7 in weight class. Now you might ask the question, well, Steve, why aren't you doing propane class 8? Save that for the very end, and I'll give you a little bit of an update on where things are going with propane. But right now we're up to that 33,000 GVW. But what is this propane stuff? Yes, it's the exact same fuel that goes inside your grill cylinder on the back deck, for cooking your steaks or hot dogs over at my house. But it's that clean American fuel. We get all of our propane here from the United States, and we are the largest producer of it in the world. We produce about 30 billion gallons of it a year. We use about 10 billion gallons of it here and export about 20 billion gallons of it. So if you think about it for a second, how many gallons of diesel do we use every year in our transportation sector? It's 40 billion. So I could take half of the diesel off the road tomorrow without changing any of our infrastructure, because we already have it. I just don't have to send it to the ports to go overseas to 26 million vehicles worldwide that are using it. We could use it all right here. But it is that same propane that heats up 48 million houses, does grain drying on farms, operates forklifts inside warehouses so people don't get sick and die. We're in commercial mowers. We're in a lot of different things. But a lot of times we get confused with CNG, which is our sister fuel, natural gas. We are one of the natural gases, the methanes, the pentanes, the ethanes, the butanes, the propanes. All of these we get out of our own soil here in the United States. But we operate as a liquid. So when you shake your grill cylinder while you're getting it refilled and putting it back up underneath your grill, it is a liquid inside there, and it stays a liquid unless you put it in 42 degrees below zero. Then it starts to boil off. So we keep it at about 100 psi on a 60-degree day. and it stays there. It's not very much pressure at all. It's heavier than air. So if you're working on vehicles inside a maintenance facility, you don't have to put the methane detection at the top. You don't have to do the evacuation of that air and all of those very expensive things. If you're certified for gasoline and diesel, you're going to be fine for propane because it has the same properties of being heavier than air. So you don't need to spend all that money, but it is a very hydrogen rich fuel. I like to call it a stable hydrogen fuel because we stabilize it with those 3 itty bitty little carbon atoms that are in that 8 surrounded by 8 hydrogen atoms, unlike gasoline and diesel, which are very heavy on the carbon side. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get rid of. But we have 2 sources of propane, regular propane and renewable propane. But we'll talk a little bit about renewable propane at the very end. But both of them operate exactly the same way because they're the exact same molecule, just come from different feedstocks. But both of them are non-toxic. They can't contaminate the water. They can't contaminate the air. They can't contaminate soil. So the EPA doesn't even regulate our fuel stations because they can't hurt anything in that regard. Unlike a gasoline or diesel tank that can seep and you have to spend millions of dollars to clean it all up. Propane is non-toxic. You can breathe it. We add a little bit of stink to it. So if anybody can smell it, you know, that way we know we have, somewhere it might be leaking. Everybody has a pathway to zero, every alternative. And I am so glad Clean Cities is fuel agnostic when it comes to this, promoting electric, promoting CNG and hydrogen, and of course, propane. Our pathway to zero for propane goes like this. We have 2 toxic emissions that we're very worried about, particulate matter and NOx. These are the ones that cause the respiratory illnesses for kids on school buses that get real close to those diesel exhaust fumes. We have no particulate matter filter that goes on our engine because we don't have the particulate matter. So that's kind of a gimme. We're real good there. NOx emissions, West Virginia University, same people that busted Volkswagen say that we're 96% cleaner than the best in class diesel. In other words, the same diesel bus, same propane bus, same make, model, year on the same route. They put mobile emission equipment on there to find that we were 96% less. Greenhouse gases, we have a tremendous amount of reductions, especially with some new engines that were coming out. I'll talk about it at the very end. But fuel and maintenance costs, these guys are going to talk about their stories. But the baseline, that bottom line down there is propane. We're much less than other energy sources. And if you look at least for the week of March 7th, the prices around the country for propane, and this is with road taxes, but without the alt fuel tax credit, which is 37 cents a gallon for propane. So whatever these numbers are here, you know, especially in the state of Georgia, you can take 37 cents off of that up until December 31st of 2024, and then that'll go before Congress again for renewal. So all of that is in this, included in the federal budget since 2006 when I first started this. Diesel is on the kind of the last legs. We're under the 2010 regulatory, which is a level of 0.2 NOx. So if we're right here with 0.2 NOx in 2024, we're going to reduce that by 75%. So if you love diesel emission reduction equipment now, you're really going to love it in 2024 because they're going to have to reduce and add a whole lot more to it to get it all the way down to 0.05. Then in 2027, it gets cut in half again to 0.02. Propane engines today are operating at 0.02. So we're way ahead of the curve there as far as emissions go. Roush Cleantech is one of the vehicle providers. This is if you're ordering a new vehicle, you know, whether it's a strip chassis or a cutaway or one of the trucks all the way up to an F-750 or the Bluebird school buses is what Roush puts their 7.3 liter engine in all of these platforms. And again, it meets that 0.02. If you have existing gasoline vehicles that you'd like to turn over into propane, folks like Alliance Auto Gas have thousands of EPA certificates of conformity for various platforms, and Ford, GM, Isuzu, Chrysler, all of these there, including a very popular one, the Ford Transit. School buses is where we've had a lot of success. We have over 1,000 school districts now operating on propane. And once they get started, they don't stop. We have just a couple of weeks ago, Rudolph Township in New Jersey reached its full 100%. I've got Kay Cornelius in Upper Minnesota. She has the largest school district of square miles, 4,200 square miles she covers, and 95% of all her routes are covered by propane. We move over 1 million kids every single day, but 22,000 school buses operate on propane today. And just to give you kind of a lineup, as of Q2 of 2022, the Polk data revealed that we had 19,000 of those on the Type C platform. Gasoline is in there as well. CNG has almost 600, and electric in the Type C had 398. Gives you an idea. Electric buses came out about 10 years ago, and so did propane. So we've got a really good high market success with that, but not just in school districts. Parcel package, we have UPS, we have FedEx, we have DHL, but the latest one to come on board were the contractors for the United States Postal Service. They handle 70,000 of the 92,000 routes there on these Class 6 and 7 straight trucks. And they, just for you Clean City folks, I know you get graded on the number of gallons that you displace. These trucks over here are averaging 18,000 gallons of fuel a year per truck. They drive 7 days a week. They slip seat these things. They're driving 24 hours a day. And so if you want to displace a lot of diesel, you can do that with propane with the United States Postal Service contractors. Nestle Water started about 5 years with 5 trucks, kind of like a little, PR campaign. Well, they found out what they could do with emission reductions and fuel cost savings. Now there's 1,300 of these water delivery trucks that are out there. Paratransit's been the same way. They're averaging about 600 gallons a month nationwide. Greg and Paul will tell us a little bit about what they're doing. But just to give you an idea, chassis have gone up tremendously, and Greg can attest to this as well as Paul. But for a gasoline version, you're going to spend about $165. For a propane version, about $195. That might be a little bit high, but I'd rather go high and meet expectations a little bit better. But on the electric side, you're really going to spend a shiny penny for that one, and maybe not go quite as far. And one of the fleet sets in New York doing this put out some numbers recently that they lost about 40% of their range going to electric when the weather started getting a little bit cooler. Kitsap in Tacoma did a session with me at the Green Transportation Summit, and the sustainability officer there was showing some of his slides, and I stole one of them. And 2 things, the bottom 2 bullets here, he has some diesel, some gasoline, and propane that are all in the same exact configuration of that E450 cutaway that you can see in the picture. And he documents very carefully his cost per mile on diesel is 48 cents, his cost per mile on gasoline is 50, and his cost per mile on propane is 20 cents. And that's pretty good, but look at the greenhouse gas reductions that he's been able to do. This sustainability officer for this particular fleet has measured 2.4 metric tons per diesel bus, and the propane is 0.014 metric tons. So we're doing a great service there in Tacoma. Infrastructure. Now we're going to have Mauricio talk about the really cool infrastructure, but we have 4 types. We can do mobile fueling like the city of Boston does every single night on 400 buses. Bobtail truck comes in and fuels them all up because they don't have room for a fuel station anywhere in Boston in their parking lot. We can move it around on temporary trailers to get it where people need it, but everybody wants one of these. And this is our friend Greg Powell out in Cherokee County. He's filling up his buses for the first time. We're going to have him talk about what's going on there as well. But up in Pennsylvania, everybody wants one of these fuel stations behind their gates so that their own drivers can fuel them up, park them, and have that autonomy, not having to go to the gas stations, not having to get coffee and donuts and everything else, but they can fuel up right there safely and very affordably. This is in Baltimore with those Ready Fresh water delivery trucks, 2,000-gallon tank. This setup here is about $50,000. And everybody in the propane fueling business will give these away if you sign up for a fuel agreement with them and you lock in for a price for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and you get a price that you like, as well as the stability of that and a fuel station that's going to get maintained by that fuel provider as well. Different configurations. When you get up to 600 or 700 buses like they do in Texas, they have 3 30,000-gallon tanks behind there, but the same dispenser is operating and filling it for drivers to be able to fill up. I'm not going to steal Mauricio's thunder. This is a little bit more about his system. And just to give you an idea of that cost comparison on infrastructure, it's one of Propane's greatest assets because we can set up this infrastructure anywhere. even in the most remote areas, very resilient. We move propane in pipelines, in rail cars, in transport trucks, and then all the way down to what we call these bobtail trucks with 3,000 to 4,000 gallon barrels on these things. But the important part is in a storm or in any kind of catastrophe, we can use these trucks to fill up, because we have intermediate storage of propane in every single community in these United States. Even though it moves on rail cars and pipelines and trucks, we store it intermediately in these what we call bulk facilities, so that we can pull it from there without electricity, and we can put it in your facility without electricity. Future of propane, renewable. But before we get into renewable, let's just look at the carbon intensity of what the EPA says about regular propane and the regular grid. Now, the grid is very diverse in its energy sources, but when you average all of the wind, solar, hydro, coal, natural gas, nuclear, you have a carbon intensity assigned for every single state. Hopefully nobody here is in Wyoming, 326. I'm not sure why we would want to do an electric vehicle there. But then you have really, really clean states in the Pacific Northwest because of the hydro, and even in Vermont. Vermont's the cleanest state of electricity in the United States. But the grid intensity average for propane is 79, 154 for EV. So let's look at what that looks like in Georgia. And Alicia, I'm sorry I did this for Georgia, but I didn't do it for Florida. I can do it for you later. But I just wanted to measure out and find out what that regular propane operating those vehicles would look like in Georgia. And we're minus 7.3 tons of CO2 less than the same electric mid-duty vehicle operating 200 miles a day, and we're 0.08 less in NOx than the electric vehicle getting charged in the state of Georgia. But renewable propane is exactly the same. It's very low carbon intensity because of the pathways of what is there. We have used cooking oil, we have dairy manure, we have all kinds of canola, but it's the same infrastructure, the same engines, nothing changes. And if you want to use regular propane now, you can move into renewable propane anytime. Even in the state of Vermont, which has the cleanest of all, that's actually New York. When we use renewable propane, it's 86 tons of CO2 less than that grid. Here it is in Vermont, the cleanest electric grid on the planet because it's all hydro. We're 12 tons less CO2 when we use our renewable propane. And we have renewable propane coming up all over the place now because of its popularity with renewable diesel, renewable jet fuel. All of these manufacturing facilities are coming up. New York, Sacramento, even just south of Richmond, Virginia, and Petersburg, we did a ribbon cutting there. They wanted to have their entire municipal fleet running on renewable propane as well. But right up there in New York, we got it on rail cars going straight up there. Not just the fuel is changing, but we also have some major engine developments, and I'll just leave you with this. The Cummins new engine, which is a B67 propane that was announced just this last year, is coming to market in spring of 2025. It has the highest horsepower and torque rating of any in that class, and it even beats diesel. They had to tune it down a little bit because they're a diesel company. So, but this 360 horsepower, 860 foot-pounds of torque is a beast for medium duty trucks and buses. Propane.com has a host more information if you'd like to look up any of that. And of course, you can reach me directly as well. So I guess we have, is it Greg that's going to be up next on this, or is it Paul? I'm sorry, I forgot the agenda to switch it over.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. So next up, we'll have Greg Powell, Cherokee County.
All right, sorry, y'all. Took me a second. Take it off mute. But anyway, my name's Greg Powell. I'm in Cherokee County, Georgia. We have 3 propane buses. When I first got here about 5 years ago, we started looking at alternative fuels because you could see how the wind's blowing politically and how they're trying to push certain vehicles and stuff like that, technology. So when we started looking at it, we took advantage of, the FDA looking at the Green Initiative Clean Air Act, and in writing grants, it lowered the burden for the citizens of Cherokee County And by not chasing the fad, I found that propane gave us an advantage by being profitable before we met useful life, or before we will meet useful life in the vehicles, which allowed us to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So that was where we ended up on the propane. And it just so happened all this happened when the supply chain and all started to, the COVID and all that. Y'all know how hard it was to get, vehicles and things like that. So, but we had 3 vehicles with Forest River. The supply chain hit. Long story short, we lost those vehicles. I was in the process of looking at the propane and met a gentleman, Randy Behoven from Rouse Tech, and he was instrumental in introducing me to Scott Reston over at Coaching Equipment. And Coaching Equipment went above and beyond and getting us the buses within a time frame that they beat the competition and got it to us fairly quick. So basically, this ended up almost being a 3-year ordeal. And then we go into the infrastructure. The infrastructure was, we had to do the like a cement pad, the bollards and things like that, and they come and drop the tank. One of the things I will bring up to your attention, when you do the electrical portion of it, try to find somebody that has done it before. Let me see if I can share my screen. I want to show you guys. Look in the picture on the right side there. All right, can y'all see that?
Not yet, Craig.
Not yet. Okay. All right, what about now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can see over on the right side. Okay, so they had to run the wires, through the ground and pulling the wires and things like this. They ended up, I guess, scraping it or whatever. You can see where it arced and created a problem for us. We ended up going through 2 compressor motors through this process, which, we started this in October of 15 when we did the ribbon cutting. And actually, Steve showed up for the ribbon cutting. And so really, we didn't get started with our propane, like really, going day to day until January of this year. So that's the kind of time delay that it can cause you. So I just say in that process, be aware of, what can happen from the installation standpoint. But from the cost perspective, when you're taking advantage of FDA, they'll do a 90-10 on that. So that actually helps you. Only 10% for the county. I think it took us about $22,000 for everything on that. So it wasn't too bad. Then I will go to something from a positive standpoint. If you look at buying propane buses, like I bought these 3 at $307,000 at an 85% FDA grant. That's 15% for us, for Cherokee County as a citizen. That's $46,132 that we had to put in. Then we talked with Dave Rigney from AmeriGas, and they're actually local to us. So by using AmeriGas, if you buy 3 buses or more in the first year, they'll give you $5,000 per bus to help for the cost of it. So that took us down to $31,132. When you compare that to a gasoline buses, we had 3 gasoline buses at $281,665. At a 20% split, that was $56,000. So you look right off the bat, we're already beating the money just on that 15 or that 85-80 split right there. Then when you take advantage of the propane, it saved our county $25,200. So when you go to sell this at the BOC or your bosses or anything like that, that's just it's hard to say no to that, especially since you're meeting a green initiative and you're able to be profitable within the useful life of the vehicles that you have. So that's my story.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg, for sharing more just about you as being recently implemented these changes. And next up, we'll have Paul Strovis with Broward County sharing about how his implemented changes long-term have proved helpful for the county.
All right, thank you, Sumner. You see the presentation?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Strovis. I'm the Director of Paratransit Services in Broward County. It's the Fort Lauderdale area of South Florida, for those that may not know. Appreciate having the opportunity to tell our story here. We've been using propane since 2015 in our paratransit fleet. And so there, I wanted to share some factors that you may want to consider. Some of it Steve's talked about and Greg talked about, so I won't dwell too long on those points, but let's get into the presentation. So what I was looking for when we adopted an alternative fuel was, a couple of things to make it a successful return on investment, as Greg mentioned. And investigating all the various fuel sources, electric, CNG, propane, as I started looking at reduced emissions, cost of ownership, performance of the vehicles, and the where the fuel was coming from, it was pretty evident to me that propane was the solution for us. So, as Steve mentioned, it's the most cost-effective fuel source to reduce your NOx emissions. It does have the lowest cost of ownership, and I'll illustrate that with some financial information later on. The range that you can get compared to the other models. For me, the biggest benefit of propane in a paratransit industry is the flexibility of the fueling infrastructure. So as a paratransit system, we contract out our service. So we're going to have public procurements for companies to operate our service. Private entities are bidding on this work. And so the vendor that I use to deliver this service will change every 5 to 7 years based on the procurement process. So looking at some of the other fueling infrastructures that are more permanent and more expensive would be very difficult to relocate if I were to change vendors. And so having the flexibility with propane was a big selling point for me. And as Steve mentioned, from a resiliency standpoint, we are, on the hurricane path every summer. Having a fuel source that was available to me when you couldn't buy a gallon of gasoline anywhere in Florida helped us in our role as an emergency evacuation service for our citizens here in Broward County. As Steve mentioned, seeing that it was domestically produced reduces our dependency on foreign oils, which met a lot of our county commission goals. And so, again, the benefits of that program really showed for us propane was the way to go. But what do you need to consider if you want to do it? Steve mentioned propane.com, the Clean Cities folks. You need to be knowledgeable because there's a lot of fears and misconceptions with propane. Take a look at your vehicle type. Steven mentioned Roush has a system. Alliance Gas has a system for aftermarket conversions. I use another vendor called ICOM North America, very similar to the Alliance aftermarket. So any vehicle style you may operate today, you either have an OEM option or an aftermarket conversion option if it's a gasoline vehicle, because they both have hundreds of vehicles that are EPA certified systems. Your infrastructure. As Steve mentioned, you can mobile fuel if you need, like Boston does. Again, I've got an agreement with AmeriGas, who's a local provider here. I would recommend that anybody who wants to go with that, find a vendor that has a large amount of storage in your local area. AmeriGas, for me, has hundreds of thousands of gallons of local storage in my county, so that even in a storm, as there's no interruption in our fueling capabilities. Obviously, the benefits to the environment that Steve mentioned, and the budget impact. As a taxpayer-funded service, We are the most expensive passenger service that a transit system can provide in paratransit. So being able to save any money in our operating budget or capital budget allows us to provide more services to our senior and disabled populations. So, you know, the first one I had to learn, and Steve said it, it's the stuff you cook your burgers and grills on, but unfortunately, Hollywood also makes it seem very unsafe with, you know, these explosions you see in movies and whatever, but it is very safe. The systems that are controlling your propane in your vehicles are very safe, better than the OEM systems that come in for gasoline. Narrower range of flammability compared to other petroleum products, higher ignition point. As Steve mentioned, it's heavier than air. So if you're gas or diesel certified, you don't have to worry about retrofitting your garages. Your technicians don't need special training on handling it other than the injection system itself. And, you know, like I said, the tanks that go into these things are almost bulletproof and very, very safe. So I went out, I didn't do a trickle effect. I bought 138 propane buses back in 2014. We were going all in on this system. And then this happened to me. 2 weeks before go live, pulling out on service, I had a vehicle fire and they, you know, everybody pointed to the propane. I'm happy to tell you that this was an electrical fire in the engine, had nothing to do with the fuel source. But the biggest story that I want to take away from this is the safety features that are in place in the Roush system operated exactly like it was supposed to. When you shut the ignition off, the propane goes back to the tank. I climbed under this bus at the end of this fire and there was still 3/4 of a tank in propane in the tank. So very safe system. Even with a full fire like that, the fuel source never ignited. So I talked about vehicle types. Here's a mix of the vehicles I've had in my fleet over the years. Coach and equipment, our cutaways that we get from Champion Bus use a Roush OEM system, a monofuel propane system. The transits, unfortunately, Roush doesn't have a system that fits that transit engine. We've got both the 3.7 liter and the 3.5 liter turbos. Our ICOM partner has a system for both of those vehicles for us for an aftermarket biofuel solution. Ford Tauruses, same thing, aftermarket biofuel system. The MV1s were gasoline, but we've retired those out. So now we're 100% with the other three body styles of propane powered vehicles. You know, and just to go back on the upfit, you know, we talked about the vehicle price with the OEM. You can get it delivered with it in it. I've actually gone out and created a bid for Broward County to do the upfit after I received the vehicles. I found a significant savings for us. Upfitting with the ICOM system on my Transits and my Tauruses is about $8,000 to $10,000, where the OEM option for us was more $18,000 to $20,000. So there, I have found some savings in procuring those upfits separately from buying them off our state contract. And if anybody is interested, the Florida state contract, which will be issued within the next couple of weeks, has a federal procurement for 5310 and other federal funds that allows piggybacking, but there are multiple vehicle styles and propane is always an option on that contract. Fueling infrastructure, as we mentioned, bobtail, for me, this was the best option. I got a driver who runs out of fuel because he's not paying attention to the fuel gauge. AmeriGas can dispatch a bobtail, fill it up, get it back to the garage if needed. When we had the hurricane last September that wiped out the west coast of Florida, we were mobilizing to assist getting people out of those areas in the Fort Myers and Tampa area. And we were going to use our propane buses, and our partner at AmeriGas was ready to stage a bobtail like this along our Alligator Alley, which cuts across the state, so that we could top off and make sure we had enough range. With the power down on the entire left side of the state, we could get over there, help people, and use these types of trucks to help keep our vehicles moving back and forth for helping out. Steve mentioned mobile fueling. You know, we had an issue with the dispenser that went down. While AmeriGas was repairing that, and waiting on parts. They were able to bring in a flatbed like this so that we didn't have any interruption in our capacity to fuel our fleet, which today is 337 vehicles that operate in Broward County. So this is one of my stations that we put in at our vendor's location. Two 1,990-gallon tanks with 2 dispensers. Each of my providers had a station like this. Our contract with AmeriGas, includes them installing the full system for us, maintaining it. This system didn't cost me any capital outlay. It's all included in a per gallon usage contract. And AmeriGas maintains this system for us and continues the fueling. So, all the pad, the bollocs, the electric, that can all be included in a bid. And if anybody needs any help with that, I can share a spec if you want. This system comes with an online fuel management system as well. It can tie into an existing system if you need to, but AmeriGas is partnered with Superior Systems, provides us a fuel fob for every single vehicle so that we're able to track the propane by bus, which helps us, with our reporting. The one thing you want to look at is your range. And while the vehicle range is comparable, you may not have as many options for fueling. So take a look at, strategically placing. And after the first 5-year contract with AmeriGas, we looked at adding multiple stations, not just the ones at the garage that we had originally. And so we were able to expand our footprint now to 4 stations to serve our area. Another benefit of that superior fuel tracking system is I can even use AmeriGas's dispensers and mine to fuel up our buses, and it's all being tracked on that same system. So that's a big benefit for us here in Broward County. Won't go too much into the green because Steve really hammered that out, but we're using regular propane today. We've started our conversations with AmeriGas to move to the renewable propane in the near future to get as clean as possible. Being that I'm 100% propane now, Alicia needs to be able to report, reductions. So this is the only way I can do it. I don't have any diesel or gasoline vehicles to convert. I'm already at 100%. So renewable propane for me is the future. So we're looking forward to that coming up in the near future for us. An example of our, we were able to save 18 million pounds over the 5 years of useful life. So there are calculators that you can use when you're selling this to your decision makers of the impact that these conversions can make in your area. So this is the big reason why I did it, and they keep inviting me to speak to these things, is the savings that propane has over other fuel sources. And this was last month. I did a meeting for Alicia here for our Southeast Regional Clean Cities meeting. In our agreement with AmeriGas, we pay a rack price that we get on a weekly report. We decided not to lock in any sort of futures price or anything like that. So it'll change week to week for us. But when you compare it to the unleaded gasoline in our region, you can see that the Hattiesburg price that we use for our contract was 90 cents a gallon of propane. We then have a administrative markup built into the price with AmeriGas for all the stations, the maintenance, the fueling that's included. So my price was $1.42 last month in February compared to $3.31 for gasoline. So that's a significant savings for every gallon of gas that I can save by using propane. But to see the real impact, this really tells it to you. This is actual propane consumption here in Broward County since we went live. We were averaging almost 1.5 million gallons of propane of use before the pandemic. That usage has dropped off, but it's starting to come back now as people start to travel. But you can see that in the cost per gallon, when you compare it to what the gasoline would have been, we were able to save over $9.6 million of taxpayer dollars by using propane instead of gasoline in our vehicles. And that's before any of the federal alternative tax rebates or anything like that, which we've been able to recoup an additional $3.7 million from the federal government for that 37 cents a gallon that Steve mentioned, bringing our net savings to $13.3 million over the last 7 years. That's an average net cost per gallon of 91 cents for propane compared to 277 average over the 7 years. These are numbers that my budget folks love. You know, again, as a $30 a trip service, I've got almost a $30 million a year operating budget. When I'm able to save this type of money, it allows us to continue to provide more services to our senior and disabled population in a clean burning fuel vehicle in our community. So that is my story, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paula. Such great information. And then last but certainly not least, we've got Mauricio Morafialos with Propane Solutions to talk about the innovative solutions that they have for propane and all fuels. You're on mute, Mauricio, but we see your screen. Looks good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks, Sumner. Thanks, Alicia, for the invite. It's always great to be invited to these great forums and have an opportunity to talk about the great things that propane can do for everyone's goal of zero emissions or reducing emissions, right? So my name is Mauricio Morafialos. I am the owner and CEO of Propane Fueling Solutions. Give you a little bit of an update about who we are. We have been in the propane business for several years. We are a sister company of a traditional propane infrastructure company based out of Texas. So for the greater part of over 25 years, we have been building traditional infrastructure, mainly focused for school districts in Texas, and building, large school districts that have hundreds of school buses that have been running for decades now, very successfully on propane. We're the ones that go and build their infrastructure, right? Tanks, dispensers, all that sort of good stuff. So PFS is a sister company to Propane Specialty Services. And the need for propane fueling solutions to come about was based off of the shortage or the limitation that we saw on infrastructure. Infrastructure tends to be timely, costly. You're never on schedule. You're always over budget, and it always kind of deters people from trying to go to do an alternative fuel such as propane, right? Especially when you're talking about the bigger fleets. And so what we saw is, can we make a solution that is modular, but not just modular, also bring an approach that not just helps on the mobility part, but also helps to push and promote our goal of net zero. So what we did is a little bit different approach. We said, can we combine propane with alternative renewable sources? And that's what we've done. But at the heart of everything is propane, right? And why is propane so important? Well, it's clean. In the rest of the world, propane is not a secondary fuel source. It's a primary fuel source. So if you go to Europe, if you go to Latin America, propane has been around for decades, and has been it's really here in the US kind of taken a little bit longer to get some good traction, especially on the auto gas, right? So why would we ever use any other fuel for our transportation fleets when we're the largest producer and exporter of propane, right? these are the main 4 points, which are or why propane is so important. It's easy, right? If you can fill your traditional gasoline or diesel vehicle up, you can fill a propane vehicle up. Very simple, very easy, very safe. It's clean, right? I'm not going to repeat. Steve's the expert on this. He's got all the great fancy the numbers. It's just clean. Propane greatly reduces NOx. It's a phenomenal fuel source. The third is it's proven, right? This is not something new. Autogas and especially for autogas around the world has been around for a very long time. It is a proven technology, so it's nothing new. And I think the a very important one is the reliability and the uptime, right? So costly repairs. There's no special systems, right? If someone can work on a diesel engine or on a traditional gasoline engine, they should be able to work on a propane engine. We have been, like I said, really focused on the school districts, school buses, because we've seen that has been a really successful market for propane. So just some numbers here in Texas, we have one particular school district that has been operating on propane for over 45 years. That's pretty significant, right? And today they have just short of about 600 school buses every day that run on propane. It's a pretty significant commitment to a clean fuel source, right? So more than 23,000 buses today on the road, and about 1.3 million students are transported daily on a propane bus. This is just kind of a traditional infrastructure photo of a site that we've done here in Texas. Everything, what they say in Texas, everything is bigger in Texas. That's pretty true. So this is a very typical site. Here's another one, just to kind of show you, you have your traditional, your bollards, your tank. So then we saw, how can we make this affordable for everyone? And how can we make it so that smaller fleets, smaller school districts can have a solution that's drop into place? What we see more and more every day is the need for modular infrastructure. And there are a lot of skids today in the market, but what we hadn't seen is a skid that really integrated technology and safety into a all-in-one encompassing solution. And that's what we've done, right? What we've done is we have, kind of taken the approach of, can we make a system that's off the grid? Can we make a system that also can capture some sun, can capture some solar, has a built-in fuel management system that is safe, that runs off of a telephone instead of a key phone, right? So this is just kind of a couple of photos to show you what a modular off-the-grid solution system looks like. So now you're not limited to, well, where can I put these? Well, I've got to get a permit. Well, I've got to get electrical. I've got to do all of this. You literally can just show up, drop it in place, and walk away. This is our hybrid solution, which is solar, wind, battery, but at the heart of it is propane, right? And why? I know that today we're discussing about propane is the what we're discussing on today's call, but I think it's important that we also need to know that electrification is here. We know it, and it's not going away. And we can either work with electrification, or we can swim against that current, and we won't win. And when we're talking about being able to attain net zero, we want to be able to do that in a way that makes sense, right? So one of the big things is power production. You know, it's one thing to just plug into the grid. The power still needs to come from somewhere, right? So just plugging in isn't the solution, but if you're able to make your power, now you're getting somewhere. So what we've done is we've incorporated solar into our designs. We've incorporated wind turbines into our designs. And we've incorporated very smart lithium-ion battery technology into our designs of our skids. So what does this do? It's a diverse energy, all right? It's a diverse energy solution. I'm in Texas. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And every year we get hit with storms, severe weather, hurricanes, tornadoes, all that good stuff. So I also don't know if y'all know, here in Texas, we have a little thing called ERCOT, which we wanted our independence, and we thought it'd be great to be not tied into the national grid. That hasn't turned out to be a very smart thing for us. We have a lot of problems, but with propane and with auto gas, we really, you know, that we were able to kind of to eliminate that problem. Electrification is here, but nobody wants to make a big commitment. So how do we do that? Well, our approach is, can we provide a solution that provides fuel via auto gas on one side and allows you to also charge your electric vehicle? We think that that's an approach that makes sense. This is a solution. This is us being able to charge a school bus that's being powered by propane. It's being powered by renewables. So many school buses have a diverse fleet of propane buses that accomplishes one mission. And you know, it's kind of hard to turn down great incentives from the government when they're pretty much giving you a free bus, right? So this is where we wanted to do an approach of, can we bring some common sense to this? And can we bring an approach where, you know, propane plays a very important role in this? We are making power. We're not just tapping in to an existing power grid. Talked a little bit about more natural disasters are on the rise every single year. So energy independence is very important. And being able to not depend on the grid is kind of a core value for us, right? Can we produce and keep vehicles running? Propane, it doesn't matter, you know, propane, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can always fill a vehicle, but you can't always do that with an electric vehicle. You can with our system. So this is our solution. Our holistic solution is whether you have a propane fleet or you want to start to dive into an electric fleet and you don't want to, you know, make that full commitment. Our solutions are designed to be drop in place. They're designed to be scalable and modular, integrating the latest technologies and the best safety, safety processes in the industry. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mauricio. Appreciate it. So folks, feel free to start putting some of your questions in the chat, and we'll go back and start answering some of the ones that have already been put in there.
If you want, Sumner, I can go ahead. I see Gil's first question for the speakers. Gil mentions, he says, I see there is a biofuel light duty vehicle, gasoline, propane. Are there any plug-in hybrids that are electric with a small propane tank as opposed to gasoline?
In Japan, everywhere. As a matter of fact, when they were going to have the Olympics before COVID, all of the taxis there are a propane hybrid with electric. And we're working towards that here in the United States. There's taxi cabs in Las Vegas that are doing the same thing to allow for that. But what we can do now with gasoline, propane, gasoline, electric hybrids that you have right now, we can make that gasoline portion of it run on propane. And so that's what we're doing now, because we have the EPA certificates to make that happen. Hopefully the OEM side of that will be coming soon.
Thank you, Steve. And then next question is, you all said that there is a slight NOx reduction with propane use versus the grid for Georgia. Does that include the new units at Vogelto coming online soon?
I don't know what the Vogelton can you guys fill me in on that?
Vogel,
Gil?
the Georgia power plant, so that's still, I think, on the works. I would assume that does not include in your numbers.
I'm going by what the EPA uses. The EPA takes in the entire state's production and averages it. So if there's certain areas of the state, like in my area of South Carolina, the Oconee nuclear plant is right nearby. So, there's really, low greenhouse gases from nuclear. But when do the average for the state, that's as far as the breakdown goes for EPA.
And Gil is with our Georgia EPD. So Gil, if you feel a need to elaborate on that at all, please feel free to come off mute. If not, hopefully that answered your question.
I was going to say there was one more from Gil, and he mentioned, I saw comparisons are with ultra low NOx propane fuel. Is that all propane fuel, or is that a special order?
That's more on the vehicle side. It's like with diesel, you have after treatment, the diesel exhaust fluid, you have the scrubbers, you have the EGR, you have the particulate matter filters. All of those things are put on there to get to a low NOx or an ultra low NOx. There's those classifications that the EPA and CARB have, and it's not on the fuel side as much as it is on the engine side that's using various technologies to clean that and meet those particular standards. The sum of it is propane so clean to start with, we can reach that ultra low NOx with a catalytic converter, the same one that goes on your car, without any of the particulate matter filters, without any of the EGR, without any of that regen that you have to go through. None of those things happen. It basically, we're able to reach that ultra low NOx rating with just a regular carb catalytic converter.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And then Gil, I see you took yourself on mute. Please feel free.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think you answered all my questions, and I think like Sumner said, I think that estimate doesn't include the unit 3 and 4 that they're trying to get online. Just Steve, just as a background, they've been taking years to put online some new units at Vogel for nuclear power, and it's getting really close. So I was just curious to see where you got your data from, but you all answered my questions really well. And so when you're saying ultra low NOx propane, you're just assuming the vehicle has a catalytic converter that would make it ultra low. Is that what makes it ultra low? Is that just has a catalytic converter or a three-way cat?
It is a three-way, catalytic converter. And it's the manufacturer of record, whether it's an OEM, kind of like what Roush does with Ford, so that when you order a vehicle brand new, it just through a dealer, it shows up. You can choose. Well, at least in the past, you could choose a low NOx or an ultra low NOx. Now everybody, all they make is ultra low NOx. So it's what's coming. It's the 0.02 NOx standard, and I will hint, the Cummins engine that I've been working on for the last 5 years. Cummins is on a 7-year cycle for releasing new engines, so we're pretty stoked about that. Don't be surprised if it's actually even better than the ultra low NOx. The initial testings that we're doing with this engine in trucks over the road now is astounding. Compression ratios, way back over 12 to 1, produce a lot of efficiencies, and a lot of those efficiencies display themselves in power and torque. They also display themselves in extremely reduced emissions. So don't be surprised if you see something even better than ultra low NOx in 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question from Scott. He said that he's actually having a hard time finding a company to help them with repairs on propane vehicles. And does anyone know of a company that can support them? He's actually at Cobb County in Georgia. He also left his email in the chat. So if anybody does know anybody, to please contact him.
Very good. And just last month, we did a webinar on it's on propane.com. It's highlighting the propane auto gas service network. There's over 700 of those facilities nationwide, and you can actually look them up by your particular area. So jump back onto propane.com and just do a search for auto gas service network map, and you can pull that up and find out what's right near you. But anybody who is, and there's quite a bit going on in Georgia. So anybody else on the call that can help fill in on that for the chat.
I would also reach out to whoever the system is that's in your vehicle. Roush was great sending techs down to train our techs on their system, the codes in their system. They trained local Ford dealership technicians for us when there was warranty work, when the vehicles were new. So, if it's Roush, Alliance, or ICOM, they could even help you with repair assistance, I think.
And if you're what I call an orphan, in other words, because we have a lot of propane vehicles now, especially in school buses, that are in their second life use. And so, you don't have that relationship with the converter or the OEM, and it shows up and you get it. We have one of those in Pennsylvania now that's got about 50 of these used buses that they're putting into contract, student transportation. And they did the exact same thing. They look it up and they find it, because you don't have that relationship necessarily unless you're the one buying the vehicle or installing it brand new. So with a tremendous surge now in this second life use, this network of folks that are working on it is very helpful.
Speaking of the life of the vehicle.
Yeah, I was just to say, next question.
That's what I was just getting into. So Renee actually, she said propane has been around for a while. What do owners do with propane vehicles at the end of life? Any options?
So as a public government, county government here in Florida, we auction off all of our disposed vehicles. So once they've met their end of useful life, I could tell you that the Champion buses that I bought back in 2015, were about $80,000 a bus at the time when I bought them. We auctioned them off, and people were buying them left and right for $1,000, $2,000, whatever they got them for. And then they would call us. All right, I got one of your propane buses. Where can I get fuel? So I point them towards AmeriGas or whoever. And again, the advantage is they only have 1 or 2 buses, so they can negotiate a bobtail fuel up. They don't need a station necessarily. And for repairs, same thing. We've got 2 distributors here in Broward County because of the size of my fleet. So the people that I buy the buses from, the dealers, actually have their own technicians that assist. So we've pointed them to them. Hey, go talk to Creative Bus Sales. They've got a shop here in Broward. Go to Florida Transportation Systems, one of my other dealers. They've got technicians, all very familiar with the propane systems for our vehicles. So it handed them off basically to continue the use of those vehicles. And, they were getting them at 300,000-400,000 miles on them. And I see them all the time. It's crazy watching all these buses drive around that I used to operate.
And there's also putting a plug in for the DOE. Department of Energy has the alt fuel station locator, of which I use on my phone everywhere, because I have my own, propane truck that I drive. And when I go, I drove to Phoenix, and you can find 2,600 different public, not the ones that, Greg and Paul have behind their own gate for their own purpose, but you can find the public stations right there on the app, and you can actually route out things, put in your, your start point, your end point, or you can just say, hey, well, where am I, and then it'll point you to the closest one that's there. And that's a great way to find them. And just to say, 2,600 is a pretty good amount, and it only takes a few minutes because it pumps at about 10 gallons a minute. So you're not camping out there for hours to finish your run.
And then I actually had a question for you gentlemen. Does renewable propane affect your fleet's performance capabilities differently than traditional propane?
No, because it's the exact same molecule. It's that same hydrogen rich, 3 carbon atoms, 8 hydrogen atoms. So and you wouldn't be able to tell any difference in it at all. It's just the pathway that created it is different. We have our organic propane that comes from the ground. Here in the United States, we have more of it than anybody else. But when we take, the used cooking, in other words, wherever renewable diesel is made from those feedstocks, you can't make renewable diesel without making renewable propane because it's a byproduct of it. So anywhere you're making sustainable aviation fuel, you get propane as a byproduct. And of course, it's renewable, just like the sustainable aviation fuel, just like the renewable diesel. It's the same molecular structure, and we're capturing all of it. And granted, it's mostly going to the states that have low carbon fuel standard credit, states like California, now Oregon and Washington. So a lot of it goes there because of this reason right here, the money. But we even have places in Georgia. There's fleets that just want to use it, and so they get it and they want to use it, make it all happen. But as we move towards, and I think we will be doing this in the future, a national low carbon fuel standard credit, you'll see that dispersion throughout the United States.
Yeah, we definitely want to see some of that here in Georgia and Florida for sure. I know that. And then Steve, I know you had mentioned the alternative fuel tax credit. Do you know of any other incentives for propane if somebody's looking to use propane other than that as well? Or is that the only federal incentive that you guys know about?
Well, that's on the fuel side.
Okay.
If you'd like to sign up for what we have, again, it's at propane.com, and then just type in FOA, funding opportunity announcements, and we track every single federal, and that could be some of the leftover, Volkswagen monies. It could be the DERA funding. It could be regional funding, like Carl Meyer in California. They have a regional one there. We track all of those, and you can sign up. Hey, I just want the ones for Georgia, or hey, I want the ones for all of the United States, or hey, I want these 4 states, and you can do that. And it's a mailing list. As soon as the opportunity kind of peaks out, we even give a little ahead of time when we know, and then let everybody know, then because it takes a while to fill out these things, and the windows are always very short. So getting ahead of that is always helpful. But there's nobody better than the Clean City coordinators that have their finger on the pulse of every opportunity that's out there. So we track the ones that are for propane pretty well, but I can't say enough about working with your local Clean City coordinator to get your fleet turned over.
Thank you, Steve. And on that note, we do want to share with you guys, if you're not already aware, there is a new bucket of money that was just announced at the federal level. It's the discretionary and fueling infrastructure program, and that can be at a community or at a corridor level. So if you are looking to have funding to install a fueling station for propane for others, it goes for all alternative fuels at your facility, you can look at that federal funding opportunity as an option. And then they also have it for along the corridors as well. So if you happen to have your location along a highway or state interstate, if it's a designated alternative fuel corridor, and if you don't know what those are, you can talk to us. We can let you know. But then you can also get federal funding for that as well. So wanted to put that plug in.
Summer, I will say this. I was doing a conference for SWATA, the Southwest Transit Association. There was 8 states there. And John Broden from the FTA was there, and he was talking about the low no. In other words, there's no emission vehicles, It's, kind of in that electric camp. And then there's the low, and the low he was mentioning is specific. In other words, you can't divvy up the two and cross over. And he had $69 million left over from last year that didn't get applied for. And, he gets 25% of the 1.25 billion every year to go just in low. So if, and of course, he mentioned propane by name 6 or 7 times during this. And he said, and he even said the conversions of existing gasoline vehicles for these transits also qualify in that low. So please spread the word.
I was going to say, everyone on this call that's government, you hear that? Make sure that you guys are also going for the low vehicles as well, not just all electric.
Yes, and I think those applications are open now until about mid-May. So if you have any questions about those funding opportunities, reach out to me. If you're in Georgia, reach out to Alicia if you're in Florida, and we'll help you figure that out. All right. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and give you folks some time back. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our speakers for being here today and sharing all of your words of wisdom with us. And Alicia, any parting words?
I just wanted to say thank you all for taking the time out for joining us. Thank you to all our speakers. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Sumner and I. And if you guys want copies of the presentation or need contact information, let us know. I hope everyone enjoys their week.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.